All right, welcome to the fifth edition of NASCAR Weekly Forecast. This week we're going to go over Richmond and kind of recap what happened at Pocono. Pocono, we didn't have a great week. So Almirola, who's a guy I really never trust, he finished 11th. We had him for a top 10. He might, as my detractors will say, and I'm sure they're listening, eating those jalapeno poppers. 11th is as good as 36th. I mean, he didn't finish top 10. Hamlin, top five, was the only one we hit. He won the race. And I don't know how many follow NASCAR, but Hamlin and Larson got into it. Hamlin ran him up the track. Hamlin said he gave him a lane. So again, this is where it comes into, and this is gambling in every sport, player intent, coach intent, driver intent. That's going to be interesting this week because this is a track that Denny Hamlin's from Chesterfield, Virginia. This is his quote unquote home track. Yet Kyle Larson has had a ton of success here. So it's going to be interesting to see if that squabble. Larson said after the race, if Denny called him to go play golf today, which is Wednesday, he would. He just doesn't, he wonders why he's such a leap hole, on the track. So those two, and Hamlin said, Larson's the best. So who knows? I again, it goes back to that. I don't think anything malicious is going to happen because it's going to affect both of them. Both of them are, they're pretty well secure for the playoffs. They are in the playoffs, but for a regular season championship, which is going to be hard for the both of them. With Truex and Byron up there, but still, I don't think they'll intentionally wreck each other. So this week we're going to Richmond Raceway for the second of two annual races here at Richmond. The Cookout 400. It's going to be Sunday afternoon, 2:30, a national audience on USA Network. It's going to be 400 laps, 300 miles around the point, three-quarters of a mile oval, high tire wear track. These guys late in runs, it'll be like they're on ice skates. It really will. So high tire wear track, pit, you know, pit position is important. Pit position is determined by qualifying. So that's important. And there's not as many cautions here as you think. So track position is important. There is some passing, but looking at historically, there's been 133 races here. 76.7% of the winners have come from the top 10. 9% have come from outside the top 20. But uh last last 10 races, 7 of the 10 guys have come nine or worse, have started ninth or worse, and come on to one. Last 10, Toyota, 6 wins, Chevy and Ford, two each. Joe Gibbs Racing, 18 wins here. And our comp tracks this week are obviously going to be Richmond the first time, Phoenix, Worldwide Technologies Gateway, and New Hampshire, which we did great at. So again, this is more of a predictable model. You'll see there's one monkey wrench in that, and that's the guy William Byron. William Byron, if you look at speed here, and performance this year at the comp tracks and speed, he's done great. Richmond, not so much. He leads a lot of laps. Luck really hasn't been on his side. So again, driver intent. William Byron is clearly in the playoffs. Now they're just trying to win races. So maybe they short pit, maybe, but again, trouble has seemed to find William Byron on this track. He's qualified well, he's led a lot of laps, finished 24th here in the spring. He was involved in a restart, pile up, knocked him out of the race. He was running first, slow pit stop, which is rare for him. Remember last week we said, his pit crew's the best. He came off pit road fourth. They go to restart, boom, accordion style. Chastain's involved in it. Actually, Chastain gets out of it, but he's wrecked. Byron's wrecked to the garage, 24th place finish after running good and fast all day. So he's a guy that this week, it's going to be interesting. But most of the other guys, we like this week have a proven track record, at Richmond. at Richmond Speedway. So we will get going here with our weekly metrics, which we do every week. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here so you guys can see. So Martin Truex Jr., who finished top 5 last week, is look at the number of people. What sticks out to me on this performance chart is there's 8 guys that average a top 10 finish here. That's not true at super speedways, obviously. That's true. That's not really true at road courses. At these types of tracks, it's true because, it's pretty conventional. It's not the cookie cutter mile and a half, but it's a track where if your team has it figured out, and look at the team that has it figured out the best. Joe Gibbs Racing, Martin Truex, Chris Bell, Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin. Now Busch isn't with Joe Gibbs Racing, but for 9 of the 10 races in this sample size, he was. So Joe Gibbs Racing and Toyota does really well here. Truex, 3 wins, 4.9. Bell, 5.7. No wins, but 4 top 5s. Top 5 machine. Chris Bell, I actually had him off the books last week in a top 10. I kind of ate it and took him at minus 160, but it was my biggest play of the season. And it came in. He's just so reliable and so consistent. I wouldn't normally advocate taking a guy at that short a price for a top 10 because it's a car race. Things can happen, but as we've seen with Bell, he finishes races, he stays out of trouble, and he's got great equipment. Harvick, 6.5, Busch, 6.7, Denny Hamlin, it's his home track, 6.8, Logano, 7.2, Chase, 8.2, Keselowski, 9.4, Larson, and Dillon. Larson's another guy, just doesn't have a ton to show for his speed at this track. Last 3, Kevin Harvick has averaged a top 3 finish. Chris Bell averaged a top 5 finish. Kyle Larson, Martin Truex, Denny Hamlin. Now, these last 3 races are with the next-gen car. So you can see that. And again, it's not as much Joe Gibbs, all day, every day, as it was in the last 10. But again, Truex, Hamlin, and Bell have done well here. They've averaged, an 8.5 place finish or better, among the 3 of them. So we look at that. And the question is this week, what are we going to look at? I think it's a couple things. I think, again, there's an exception to every rule. I like looking at performance here, but I also like looking at speed. I would weigh speed more this week than I did last week. Last 10 laps led at Richmond last 10, Truex, Hamlin, Busch, Logano, Keselowski, Byron. Look at Byron. And Byron is only run 8 times here, I believe. So it's not like he's even run the full 10. Larson actually won at this track in old equipment. When he was in the 42 car, he won at this track. So he's won JTG Daugherty Racing. So he's actually run well at this track before he got in the Hendrick equipment. Blaney and Chastain. Laps led last 3. This is funny. Look at Bowman. So far down, but again, William Byron has been very, very good here. Not a lot to show for it. Joey Logano has been good here. Truex, Blaney, Larson, Hamlin, Chastain, Bell with 2 L's, it should be, Harvick and Bowman. So Byron, again, has been great here. And now as we get into speed stuff, obviously he's fast. Richmond last 10 points. That's a sign of consistency. I like using the points in my handicapping, in my modeling. So Truex, Hamlin, Logano, Harvick, Keselowski, Busch, Elliott, Larson, Dillon, and Eric Almirola. Dillon is a guy that has run pretty well here. I don't trust him, just like I don't trust Almirola. I knew it last week. I shouldn't have given that pick out, but I did. It was 4-1, and the guy finishes 11th, so it's not bad. But still, things just never work out when you go with him. And that, again, that's our general feeling about NASCAR and why we like playing NASCAR. If you zero in on the top guys that are the most consistent, that have the best equipment, that are the best funded, you knock out people that really don't have a chance. That, yeah, JJ Yeley is going to have a top 10. He had one this year, but he hadn't had one since 13. Todd Gilliland for a while was running well. There are outliers. Michael McDowell is an example of a guy who's with Front Row Motorsports, which isn't a top team. He runs well. But if you look at the top 10s every week, and next week I think I'll do that on the podcast, looking at the teams that average the most top 10s and how their average thing is. It's these proven guys. That's who you put your money on. Now, again, every action has a reaction. The market's going to adjust. But for any of these top guys, as you'll see later in the picks, if you find the plus in front of their name, I think that's great value, in a race, especially at Richmond, where, obviously things can happen. There are cautions, but, there's guys that have a track record of success. Last 3 points, look at Byron's not even there because he's not running at the end of these races, but Kyle Larson, Kevin Harvick, Logano, Bell with 2 L's. I got it right this time. Chastain, Hamlin, Truex, Keselowski, Almirola, and Busch. So, and then when we go on, and I believe we have speed rankings next. So if you look, Byron was the fastest in the spring, had nothing to show for it. Kyle Larson was fast, and he won the race. Chris Bell was fast. He finished top 5. Truex, bad luck late in the race. He finished 11th. Chastain, 5th to 3rd. Harvick, 6th fastest, top 5. Hamlin got caught up in it, 7th, 20th. Bowman, 8th to 8th. Keselowski, 9th and 10th. Logano, 10 and 7. And that's the thing with Brad Keselowski, guys. I mean, he is certainly can, finish his top 10, but he makes you sweat it. He usually finishes 8th, 9th, and 10th. And his numbers just at that thing, it's just as easy to finish 11th as it is 10th. So we just don't like playing him. I mean, I've played him a lot this year, but lately I've kind of shied away from him. I want to see that team do it. Buescher's a top 10 machine, on road courses and super speedways. He's not great at this track. Talking about RFK. Keselowski is pretty decent everywhere, but not great anywhere. Not a ton of changes from last week. Hamlin, conventional ovals this year, Hamlin, Byron, Truex, Larson, and Harvick are the top 5 in terms of speed ratings. And then if we look at our comp track, these are our comp tracks. So Richmond 1, Phoenix, Worldwide Gateway, Technologies, Gateway, and then New Hampshire. Byron, Hamlin, Larson, Harvick, Blaney is in there. Ford is in there. Truex and Bell are tied. Logano, Reddick, and Bowman. Again, Martin Truex has, if you did this, the speed ratings for the year on conventional ovals, I believe Truex was, he's 3rd. At these, he's tied for 6th. So, but again, Martin Truex is having a great year, later in his career, but he's in good equipment, good team, reliable. So now we're going to go down to the picks for the week. And for top 10, I like Alex Bowman at plus 160. Barstool didn't have anything except outrights yet as of, the morning Eastern time on Wednesday. But Bowman we got him at plus 160 at Caesars. And if you look at him, if you look at Bowman, he has 2 top 10s, in the last 3. So we like him at a plus number for a top 10. And then the 3 guys we take for top 5s, top 5 statistically for me, I've done the best at, is Bell, Byron, and Harvick, all at plus money. And, William Byron is snake bit here. but you're getting the best drive, one of the two best drivers this year overall at plus money. You got to run to the window on that. That's a strong play for me. I'm going to take my chances. The guy's always there for a win. I don't know. He's in the 6-1 neighborhood. I don't really touch the outrights until in race when I see the flow of the race and see what's going on. And then again, even with that, good advice for newer people: expect the unexpected. You could have weather that comes in. You got to really know what you're doing there, because you could have a guy running up front who stays out in the other guy's pit, and then lo and behold, there's a yellow. Then those guys who pitted, they're screwed. They're in the back. That's why there's a guy, Chris Wormy, who does a great job. Shout out to Chris Wormy. His big thing is stay green. Staying green means essentially, let the race play out as if it were going to play out. If a guy pits 10 laps before somebody else, if it stays green and then the next guy's pit, it'll cycle through. In other words, and again, at this track especially, fresh tires make a difference. So in that scenario, if a bunch of guys stay out and guys in the back of the field come up, they hit and they get fresh tires, if there's a caution 15 laps later, everyone's coming down, because they get 8 sets of tires here, 8, including the one for practice, which is a lot of sets of tires. There's going to be rubber all over this track. As we discussed, it's like ice skates. So these guys are going to be going to pit road a lot in this race, just because of the nature of this, shorter flat track. Bell or Larson to win the race, I like that price. I think one of them is, Bell always qualifies well. But again, if you get the 2 for 1, that's a pretty good deal. And then obviously Joe Gibbs Racing has dominated this year, or at this track historically, the 18 wins, look at all the performances. But we're going to take Hendrick at 2.1 to 1 to win this race. And again, we're getting Larson, we're getting Byron, and we're getting Bowman, and we're getting Chase, who, Chase has to win. He can't point his way in. I don't think this is a week where he's necessarily going to win, but you never know, and he's part of it. So again, that's what we're going with. Next week, we are going to be in Michigan, which is kind of a anomaly kind of track. So basically this week, we're going for guys with proven commodity track records. I've seen in the last 3 or 4 weeks, and I've done studies on this, on my own, is that 85% of the time it's better to get people before practice and qualifying. I just think it's, you're getting more value on them before they go out and run fast. And there's some times where that doesn't work, where there'll be unapproved adjustments, a guy will be in the back of the field or whatever. But looking at the way William Byron and Chris Bell in particular have qualified this year, they always qualify fast. They always finish in the top 10 in qualifying and, go for the pole. So if you look at it, they're going to qualify fast. Harvick, not so much. Harvick's a guy that most weeks, I would say 60% of the weeks is in the top 10. But again, look at this track. Look at this track. 7 of the last 10 winners have come from outside the top 9. So it doesn't necessarily matter, but it matters for the markets. In other words, if someone's going to go fast in qualifying and they're starting up top, sometimes the markets aren't savvy enough. They're going to price that guy lower, and then you're going to have to wait till in race if you like that guy. And he drops back, has a slow pit stop, has a penalty, and then you're like, look, I think this guy can get it going. I think he has a fast car, and I'm getting some value on him. Now, during the race, it's usually top 3 or the win end, but if you get double digits on a guy in race to win, that was 5 to 1 before the race, I think that represents value. So shout out to everybody. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make Bet Bash. Wish I could, but just too many commitments. Family vacation kind of got in the way, but shout out to everyone who's going there. Really wish I could be there with you guys. But Yeah, I'll keep doing this every week. Like I said, next week's in Michigan. And good luck to everyone this week. Let's go to the window.